this story starts in Prague in 2014. And I was working as a teacher trainer or course director of a small TEFL school. And every month when graduates left, the non-native English-speaking teachers struggled to find work. But the native English-speaking trainees typically had full schedules before they left, before the course even finished, which was really, really frustrating. And what was more frustrating was when Karen came to work with us as a teacher trainer. And as a teacher trainer, couldn't find English teaching work in Prague to subsidise her income because she's not a native English speaker, which was doubly frustrating. Around 6 months later, we found Mario's blog, TEFL Equity Advocates, which was getting nice and successful. If you've never checked it out, I recommend doing it. Some really great content on there. And we realised that it wasn't just us that were frustrated. He was very, very frustrated. And hundreds of other people were really frustrated as well at the same situation, which was nice and reassuring. So we contacted Marek, and we both wrote articles for the blog. And we stayed in contact. And because we were teacher trainers, shortly afterwards, Marek contacted us and said, would you like to help me design some activities for teacher training courses to raise awareness of this problem? So we did. And about 12 months ago, we published the activities in an article. And in November last year, we implemented them on the TrinityCert TEFL course at Oxford TEFL, both in Prague and in Barcelona, with the goal of training trainee teachers to be more aware of this issue going into the industry. So in this talk, we'll show you a little bit of the research methodology behind it. We'll show you the results of the research that we did, and we'll make the case for why awareness raising of native speakerism and English in the lingua franca is absolutely vital on teacher training courses and should be there. While we were researching it, we came across some interesting statistics, and some of them you might have seen already. In 2015, Marek did a talk, did some research, and he found that in the European Union, 75% of job advertisements specify native speaker as a requirement. Incidentally, that's illegal in the European Union. The year before, Rupert and Ives did some research and found that 81% of job ads on a range of websites also specify native speaker as a requirement. A year later, I did some research myself and surveyed about 600 people within the industry, from trainee teachers to academic managers and everything in between, to find out how justifiable they felt native speaker requirements were. And generally it was quite promising. But one thing we did find is that 97% of trainee English teachers thought this was okay. They thought it was either not discrimination in any way, or that it was justified discrimination, which is a really strange qualification. The most significant statistic perhaps is this one. And this was the amount of teacher training courses we knew of that had any focus on English as a lingua franca or native speakerism as an issue. In fact, we asked somebody from Cambridge if English for a lingua franca was on the CELTA syllabus. So you know, is ELF on there? And the response we got was, what's ELF? We won't tell you who it was, but it was someone. So we thought this showed a real lack of awareness in trainee teachers of what was going on in the industry, as you would expect. And we believe that if we raised awareness early on, then the people entering the industry will be more aware. That awareness can trickle up into management, recruiters, policymakers specifically, but would also trickle down to the students and address this so-called demand for native speakers that we hear about all the time. The goals of our research, the first thing we wanted to do was look at the term native speaker and make trainees think about what it actually means, because we see it everywhere. And when we see a native speaker, we often know what it is, but we have real problems defining it. And there still isn't one solid definition of what a native speaker means. So we thought if we can muddy the water here for the trainees initially, it makes it really difficult to stand behind a requirement that we can't perform. If we don't know what a native speaker is, how do we insist that that's what we have? Second objective was to raise awareness of English and lingua franca. Again, once you know what this is and you understand it, it also makes it really hard to stand behind this native speaker model. So the teachers have to be native speaker. The biggest goal was just to raise awareness of the problem, because there is a problem, and let the trainee teacher see how widespread the problem is, and to make them speak out for it. This time last year, Savannah Richardson did a plenary that everybody is aware of. And it was great in bringing this problem to the forefront of the industry. But not everyone's lucky enough to be able to attend IATEFL. Not everyone's aware of IATEFL, and not everyone reads literature that's on the internet. So our problem was, well, who speaks to these people? People who don't come to teaching conferences. And we wanted that to be us. So what we did, before the trainee teachers arrived on the course, we asked them to fill out a questionnaire surveying their beliefs on a number of different areas. So here you can see students often want a native speaker teacher. And they marked them from completely disagree to completely agree. When they arrived on the course, we added some activities on Moodle that they did alongside the CERT TEFL. And in the Prague Centre, we integrated some face-to-face activities during the course. And at the end of the course, they did the survey again. And this was where we got our quantitative data from. So we compared the two data sets and looked for any changes. Moving this way, so moving towards more agreement, or moving this way towards more disagreement. And then at a final stage, we interviewed all the people about their beliefs, about how enjoyable they found the course. And this is where we took the qualitative data that you'll also look at in the second part of the presentation. The activities on Moodle, we did them this way so as to not to interfere too much with the course. Anyone who's taken CERT TEFL or CELTA or any of the intensive 4-week courses, they're called intensive for a reason. But we still gave them more work anyway. But it was about 2 hours, so about 2 hours in a month. So we put this in. And there were 7 activities in total. Some of the activities looked at statistics from research to let them see just how widespread the issue is, looking at a couple of the statistics that I showed you, as well as some more taken from fairly recent research papers with drop-down quizzes. So they basically picked the numbers that they thought went in. We also showed them a number of job advertisements with potentially discriminatory language, just like we have here. So the English native speaker teacher needed, which is a real job advert. And asked them to think about how justifiable the discrimination was in each case. So whether it's acceptable, never acceptable, or somewhat acceptable. We also gave them profiles of different speakers of English, and we asked them to decide, is this person a native speaker or not? So for example, someone who's attained C2 level, or IELTS 9, is that person a native speaker? Or what about all Brits, Canadians, US, are they all native speakers of English? To let them think that maybe that profile isn't quite as clear as we think it is. Because I know, for me, I know I'm a native English speaker, but I don't know which collections of things may be there. And we also got them to look at examples of what might turn non-standard English, like we've got here. And with these, we asked them to think about, were these things said by a native speaker of English or a non-native speaker of English? Of course, the twist being that they were all native speakers. They they're just from different places. So we wanted to challenge that idea of having this one correct English. On top of this, they read blog posts from Marek's blog, they watched videos, and they completed reflective pieces of writing, which included suggesting alternative labels for native speaker at the end. I say it took about 2 hours, and generally it was quite well received. But I'm not going to tell you what we found out, because Karen is. So you will find out, just not from me. So she'll tell you all about it.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So as Dan said, we implemented those activities on courses in Prague and in Barcelona. And I'm going to spoil it a little bit for you, yeah. Generally what we found out was, and you will be shocked, non-native trainees, yeah, so people who identified themselves as non-native English speakers, were a bit more aware of the problematic beforehand. So throughout the course, their beliefs did not change significantly. So before they did the activities, on average, yeah, they said 2.75, so they weren't quite sure, didn't really have a strong opinion. After the course, 4.75, so they strongly agreed that the term native speaker is problematic. Similarly, we asked them if schools can sell more courses by only hiring native speakers, should they be allowed to do so? Before the course, they agreed with it. Yeah, it's a free country, everyone can do what they like. After the course, they really disagreed with it and said no, it should not be allowed. Another example that I want to show you is we asked them, is native speakerism a form of discrimination? And before they did the activities, they were in a relatively neutral place. Yeah. They weren't quite sure either way. Afterwards, they clearly agreed it is a form of discrimination. And as Dan said, we also did interviews with all the trainees. All of them actually said that they were happy that the topic was addressed. All of them commented that they felt more aware of the problem. And all of them said that they enjoyed doing the activities, despite the really heavy workload they have on those courses, which we found very positive. And I'd like to show you some quotes from these interviews. And I think we all agree feeling less ignorant can be empowering and is generally a good feeling. Here again, I realized, yeah, so you can clearly see how their beliefs changed. And in many cases, why would they? Yeah. Why would they think about definition? And this was very important for us as a statement. And this came from a trainee. If not now, when then? So overall, native speakerism became less acceptable in the eyes of our trainees. And up to that point, really, everything that we discovered or observed was kind of what we had hoped for. And in a way, what we expected, it was kind of a best case scenario in a way. But there was one other aspect that kept coming up in the interviews that was really, really surprising to us. And it was something we had not even thought about. And this might seem a bit idiotic, yeah, to some of you who were at the plenary yesterday and listened to Sarah Merson, because the thing that kept coming up in the interviews was the human touch. Yeah. All the trainees commented that even more important than the coursework, or equally important as those tasks, was that they trainees, that they were exposed to a variety of English, and that they had a non-native teacher trainer on the course. The natives said it allowed them to put themselves in the shoes of a non-native. Yeah? And they discovered different strengths and weaknesses. They all commented that the group interaction really helped them to see those weaknesses and discuss them together. Exposure to a highly proficient non-native speaker, their trainer, was significant in shaping the beliefs, especially for native speakers. And lastly, the non-natives commented that that non-native teacher trainer was a role model for them. And they realized that they themselves can play a bigger role in the industry and actually have an impact, which is, well, I think one of the most beautiful outcomes of this whole thing. So overall, we can basically say that we have a lot of evidence that it worked. Yeah, we can say we've observed a huge change in trainees' beliefs through these activities. And that's about it for the results. I'm going to hand over to Mark.
Okay, so the three of us here, we truly believe that both native speakerism and ELF, English as a lingua franca, must be discussed during initial teacher training programs such as CELTA or TrinityCert, and ideally as an integral and obligatory part of these courses. The first reason why we believe that this should happen is that many trainees and teachers as well, especially if you've been to the debates on ELF and if you listen to some of the questions or what some of the presenters said, a lot of teachers aren't aware of what ELF is, let alone of what practical implications it has for teaching. And I must disagree here with Peter Medici, it does have an enormous amount of practical implications for teachers, right? And when I first came across ELF back in 2013, which is not such a long time ago, right? I literally thought that ELF had something to do with, well, elves, Santa Claus, and delivering presents. Right? This is funny, but it shows my complete ignorance of the subject. The curious thing, though, is that at that time, I had a BA in English philology, I had the CELTA, I had the Delta, and I had over 5 years of teaching experience. I've also always thought of myself as a fairly interested teacher who will go to teacher training sessions, workshops, try and read about ELT, not every day, but, you know, often will go to those training sessions. Yet I had no clue about what ELF was, let alone about what practical implications it might have for me as a teacher. Right? So this is the first reason why we think discussing ELF is crucial. But the second reason is that because it had never been discussed, I had always assumed that, you know, it was native speakers that spoke correct English. And we non-native speakers, you know, we're the non-speakers that can never really be proficient enough to be considered good teachers, right? I'd always assumed that it was native-like pronunciation that was the only and the ultimate, albeit forever unachievable goal for a non-native speaker, right? So, as a non-native speaker, I agree with what one of the participants in our study said. It does. It makes you feel more confident. It's empowering. Because such thoughts that as a non-native speaker you can never be proficient enough to be a good teacher are terribly debilitating for a non-native speaker. And I speak from my heart. I've lived it. I've questioned my English on so many occasions before that discovering what ELF is and learning more about it is incredibly empowering for a non-native speaker. But putting these issues of empowerment aside for a second, there's another very important issue. ELF is arguably one of the most crucial phenomena that's being studied at the moment. Think about it. English doesn't belong to the English anymore. It is an international language. And you don't need me to say that. You're probably thinking, why did I even come to this talk? I know that, Marek, English is a lingua franca of the world. However, the problem is that we are still teaching it and and we are preparing teachers for teaching it as if it was any other second or foreign language. But it is an international language. And thus I think if our trainees who then become teachers are to adequately prepare the students for the lingua franca nature of the English that they're going to encounter outside of the class, these issues must be discussed on initial teacher training programs. So that would be the third reason why they should become part of the curriculum. The fourth reason, I think, is that when I did the CELTA back in 2007, nobody had ever told me that I was a second-class citizen and non-teacher. Instead, what everybody had told me and what I read about on CELTA's website was that CELTA would open countless doors of opportunity to work abroad in private language schools. Well, it does, if you've got the right passport and the right looks. But for a lot of us, non-native speakers, things aren't that easy. So when my CV was turned down for the first time explicitly because I was a non-native speaker, it was a complete and absolute shock to the system. I didn't know what to do. Nobody had told me that this might happen, let alone what to do in this situation. And I really wish somebody had prepared me for that situation. Somebody had sat down with me and said, look, this problem exists and you will come across it. This is what you can do. Or go to these schools, try and apply there. So what we've seen in this study is that some participants reconsidered their beliefs about native and non-native speakers and about the English language itself. Some participants became more aware of English as a lingua franca and native speakerism. For some, it was a completely novel revelation. Others gained a deeper understanding of the problem. All participants, however, found the tasks and the discussion that the task provoked not only rewarding, but also incredibly interesting and important. Like, just the sheer fact that the participants did 2 questionnaires, got interviewed, and did all the tasks, despite all the heavy and intensive coursework, assignments, and looming deadlines. I think that speaks volumes about how important and interesting they thought this subject was. However, so we have managed to achieve quite a lot, but we were just 2 teacher trainers and 1 PhD student. So, but just imagine what would happen if more of us, maybe some of you already do, but if more lingua franca, and even better, if these issues became an integral and compulsory part of the course curriculum. Just imagine what would happen then. Well, this information would start trickling down to teachers, and to more teachers, and to more teachers. And with their increased awareness, they would come to classes and perhaps use this new knowledge that they have to discuss it with their students, and maybe even more students. So it'll start trickling down to customers. As teacher trainers, guys, we can affect lives of hundreds and hundreds of teachers, who then go on to affect lives of thousands and thousands of students around the world. This gives us enormous power, but also an enormous opportunity, I think. An opportunity to empower our trainees, to empower them because English has changed. It doesn't belong to the English anymore. Like it doesn't belong to any other native speakers for that matter. It is an international language, and a beautifully diverse one. So let's embrace this diversity. Let's include this diversity in our teacher training. Let's use the power and the opportunity we have as teacher trainers to change EOT, to bring back professionalism into our industry. Thank you very much.
To stay up to date, follow TEFL Equity on social media. We're on Twitter at TEFL Equity, on Google+, on YouTube, and on Facebook. You can also visit the website for free resources such as lesson plans, webinars, and blog posts. And you can also support the campaign for equal professional and employment opportunities for native and non-native speaking teachers.